Bobby Mo Show for a brand new week, and hello to you. I'm Chris Shovlin, the play-by-play voice of the Robert Morris University Colonial men's basketball and football teams. And today's Bobby Mo Show is presented by Dollar Energy Fund. We have a special guest. It's women's soccer coach Chris Shaw coming up next right here on the Bobby Mo Show. This winter, many families in our area are struggling to make ends meet and keep their homes warm. You can make a difference by making a donation to Dollar Energy Fund. Your contribution will be matched dollar for dollar by Dollar Energy Fund's utility partners, and 100% of all donations will be used to help local families maintain or restore basic utility services. No one should have to face a Pittsburgh winter in the cold. Help spread the warmth to your neighbors in need and donate today at dollarenergy.org. It's the Bobby Mo Show presented by Dollar Energy Fund, helping our neighbors in need maintain basic utility service since 1983. And to help out, visit dollarenergy.org or text WARM, W-A-R-M, to 53555. That's the word WARM to 53555. Well, it's the Chris and Chris Show today here on the Bobby Mo Show, I guess we could say. And boy, that brings me back to some days when I was working radio in Pittsburgh with Chris Winter. But in all seriousness, Chris Shaw is here with me. He's the head women's soccer coach here at Robert Morris University. And Chris, I can honestly say the first time and the last time we had a conversation was in Las Vegas, of all places.
Yes,
and I met you. You were my halftime guest when Robert Morris's men's basketball team played UNLV. At that time, you were transitioning from UNLV to Robert Morris to become the head women's soccer coach here.
That's true. Yeah, that was what was that? 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. You were just named coach, and Chris King introduced us. Speaking of another Chris, so I have to ask you, in thinking about being in the desert, being in Las Vegas, how do you like the snow out there today?
Yeah, it's definitely a change of pace, that's for sure. I'll tell you, I get excited when it's coming down, and then when it stops, then I think that's where my excitement stops. You know, it's but it's beautiful. You know, it's definitely different than the brown of Vegas. So
that's for sure. Well, welcome to Pittsburgh. I can tell you that, although you've been here for a couple of years now. But have you ever had to coach in snow before? And I realize, you know, the season's over right now, but have you ever had the challenges of being out on the pitch after a snowstorm?
You know, I don't think that I've ever had to coach when there's been snow on the ground. I've been to a couple recruiting events where I watched people play in snow. Mm-hmm. One in particular I remember was Raleigh, North Carolina, and the snow was just coming down, and as the ball was rolling, the snow, it was making a snowball of the ball, and they ended up canceling the whole tournament an hour or two after that. So
Raleigh's one of the hotbeds of soccer too in the country.
Yeah, it's definitely a good spot for it. I mean, there's quite a few hotbeds of soccer right now. It seems like there's more and more hotbeds of soccer developing, you know, every year as the popularity of the sport continues to grow.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, you can go back 10, 20, if you go back 30 years, I mean, it pretty much was a tertiary sport, not even a secondary sport. Now it seems to be, and it is, a primary sport here in the United States finally.
Yeah, it's been great to see, and I tell you, the landscape of soccer's changed tremendously. You know, I remember when I was growing up and playing, there were very few opportunities to play, you know, in the off season, mm-hmm. and now it's a year round. I mean, there's so many opportunities to play in the summer, in the winter, fall, spring. It's really great to see.
Chris Shaw is my guest on the Bobby Mo Show today. We're talking about soccer in general, Robert Morris University women's soccer in particular, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But let's talk about your background, how you got involved and fell in love with this world game, with this sport that is played everywhere.
Well, you know, my very first soccer team I played on, I was living in Newburgh, New York. My dad was working at West Point, mm-hmm. and it was this thing to do. I think, you know, all the little kids were playing, and I signed up, and my coach was an former Olympic runner, and that was all we did was run. And after about maybe a week or two, I go, you know what, this is for the birds. I'm not doing this anymore, and I quit. So that was my first experience with soccer. We picked up and moved to Kansas, and I was in a little Boy Scout or Cub Scout troop, and everyone was playing soccer, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I want to play soccer. And she's like, well, you just quit the last team you're on. You sure you want to do this? And I go, yeah, I want to do this. And that was kind of the beginning, you know, of the end for me. I never looked back after that. We moved to Germany a year later, And again, there it's like air and water over there.
Sure.
It's a part of the fabric of their society, and that was where I started to fall in love with it, and never really looked back after that. Although I remember going off to college to go play, and my dad said to me, what are you going to major in when you get to college? And I said, well, I'll figure it out when I get there. I just want to go and play soccer. And he said, well, you can't make a living your whole life with soccer.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of have.
Oh, man. I can remember, when I was a kid listening to the radio undercovers and my dad saying, hey, turn that radio off. You'll never get anywhere listening to radio all night long. And 45 years later.
There you go. Words of wisdom from our parents. Right?
Exactly. So there is an avenue to go down. Your favorite part of the game, I realize there's so many different facets to the game of soccer, and having worked for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds as their broadcaster in their first formative years, I literally learned it on the run. But it's not just running around kicking a ball out there. There are so many different strategies when it comes to soccer: offense, defense, goaltending. I can go on and on and on. Set pieces. I mean, what attracts you most about the game of soccer, or is it the combination of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I've gotten older, my views of the game have changed, and now I just really feel like the game should be played a certain way, and it's really the beautiful game, right? It's the way the Barcelonas of the world play,
right.
and the Japanese women's national team plays, where they just keep the ball on the ground. They move the ball so quickly. It's not, more of the kind of the direct style that I think is kind of being a little bit phased out. But
Sure.
That's what really attracts me to it, is that midfielder that can dictate the flow of the game and, make these little passes and play balls that no one else even sees. And, that coupled with goals, right? Everyone likes
Sure.
to see goals.
Everybody loves goals.
That's the best part of the game. But again, for me, it's really more the style that a team plays and how they play. And, again, the game's changed tremendously with some of the newer rules. Now the goalkeepers are allowed to pass the ball to backs within the 18. So now playing out of the back has become even more commonplace. And but you know what? I just love watching it and enjoy coaching it and being around it.
Yeah. Just adding to what you were just saying about everybody loves goals. Some of the best games I've ever seen were 0-0, 1-0. I mean, there's a great strategy in defense and keeping the opposing team from scoring a goal that is part of the beauty of the game.
Yeah, and I think one of the other aspects of the game that maybe goes underappreciated is the fact that, unlike most sports, in soccer you can dominate a game, completely
Absolutely.
Dominate, and lose.
Yeah.
I don't know too many other sports where you can look at the stats and see you got outshot 31-1 and lost the game. I mean, it's most stats you look at and you say, okay, well, they had a lot more yardage. Usually they win the game.
Sure.
And field goal percentage is better, you win the game. But so yeah, I think it's to your point, right? You can definitely have some 0-0 games, 1-0 games, and it doesn't mean there's not a lot of action.
You're listening to the Bobby Moe Show, your next favorite podcast. Chris Shaw is my guest, the head women's soccer coach here at Robert Morris University. Let's talk about your team right now. I know you just finished the 21 season, and you're gearing up for next year. I'm sure you're already starting to plan ahead with the players that are returning and maybe adding some players in the near future. What's life like for the head coach of the Robert Morris women's soccer team at this point in time here in January of 22?
Yeah, so we're just getting ready to start our spring season, and spring's always fun because there's a lot less pressure on the players, on the coaching staff. We're not worried about trying to get results. It's more development and trying to prepare for the upcoming fall. So with that becomes a little bit more of a laid back. We can focus on some things that maybe we didn't have as much time to focus on in the fall. Work on some things that are more specific to players' individual needs instead of the team needs. And again, it's fun to go and play a game and not be, on pins and needles about every kick of the game, because ultimately if we win 5-0, it doesn't matter, and if we lose 5-0, it doesn't matter in the spring. I mean, it might be a moral victory or it might feel good, but I'm not worried about getting a phone call from Chris King wondering why we got beat by Youngstown or St. Francis down the road.
Sure. Well, would you add players leading into the spring season, or is your recruiting effort more for next year?
Yeah, I mean, right now with the transfer portal, which is kind of blown up in all sports, I mean, yeah, there's opportunities to add players. We added one player, one transfer, but typically we've got 5 coming in the fall. So typically your fall is when you're going to add the majority of your new talent.
Okay. How tough was the Horizon League in women's soccer this past year?
Yeah, it's a tough conference, and it's probably a little bit more maybe blue collar and rough and tumble than what I was used to out in the Mountain West, where I think there was maybe a little bit more soccer being played. There's really an emphasis on the physical aspects of the game, and whipping balls in the box and getting big, strong forwards to get on the end of it. So yeah, it's a tough conference. It's competitive, and it's spread out, and so there's a lot of travel. Sure. But again, I don't know if there's any easy conferences out there. So, but it was good. We enjoyed it, and I feel like getting a season under our belt in the conference now gives us a better idea of kind of what we need to do to start climbing to the top of that conference.
All right. When are we going back to Vegas? I mean, we need to make a trip. I mean, the first time I ever talked to you was out there.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, maybe we need to talk to Andy about that, about getting the Colonials back out there for a game against the Rebels or something. I don't know. I'm always up for a Vegas road trip, though, I can tell you that.
Andy's sick of hearing me because I'm always giving him suggestions on where we got to play next. And, he said, yeah, Shove. Okay, yeah, we'll go where you want to go, right? Yeah. Anyway, Chris, thanks for joining us today on the Bobby Mo Show. Best of luck in the spring season. I know the heat's off, and it'll be back on in the fall before you know it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
This winter, many families in our area are struggling to make ends meet and keep their homes warm. You can make a difference by making a donation to Dollar Energy Fund. Your contribution will be matched dollar for dollar by Dollar Energy Fund's utility partners, and 100% of all donations will be used to help local families maintain or restore basic utility services. No one should have to face a Pittsburgh winter in the cold. Help spread the warmth to your neighbors in need and donate today at dollarenergy.org.
Once again, the Bobby Mo Show has been presented by the Dollar Energy Fund. Support Dollar Energy Fund today and help your neighbors in need stay warm this winter. Find out how a small contribution can score big with those in need. Visit dollarenergyfund.org or text WARM to 53555. All right, let's catch up on what's happening in sports here on the campus of Robert Morris University. First of all, women's track will be out on the road on Saturday at Bucknell in Lewisburg, PA. They'll be at the Golden Invitational. Men's basketball split their games this past weekend. They lost to Wright State, but finally came up with their first Horizon League victory of the 2021-22 campaign, knocking off Northern Kentucky at the UPMC Event Center. Congratulations to Coach Toole and the Colonial men's basketball team. This week on Friday night, they'll be at Purdue Fort Wayne at 7 o'clock, and then on Sunday afternoon at 3, they'll be at Cleveland State. I'll have the call of both of those games, Friday and Sunday, Purdue Fort Wayne and Cleveland State taking on Robert Morris on their home floors, and we'll do that right here on the RMU Colonials Athletic Game Day app. Don't forget to tune in. Speaking of tuning in, we'll tell you about the women's game on TV coming up. But first, we could tell you that they split last weekend as well. They lost to IUPUI and then beat Illinois Chicago, UIC. Now tonight at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus, 22 The Point, and MeTV Ohio Valley, you'll be able to see the game that they play against Youngstown State University. That'll be a 7 o'clock tip tonight. Adam Gusky and Justin Pyle will be on the call again on ESPN Plus, 22 The Point, and MeTV Ohio Valley. And on Saturday, the women's team will be at Youngstown State for a return match. That does it for this week's edition of the Bobby Mo Show, presented by Dollar Energy Fund. I'm Chris Shovlin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.